How are the Minnesota Vikings' new additions going to help them in 2026 and beyond? We know about Rob Brzezinski, but he even made it an addition to the front office on Thursday. Plus, we have multiple assistant coach changes, both positive and negative. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how this looks moving forward, and we're going to do a 7-round Vikings mock draft to finish the show. Welcome to another episode of the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show. I am your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top of the corners, producer Dave. And we are going to have a lot of discussion about the meat and potatoes of a roster. And it has nothing to do with the players. It has to do with the coaches, because the coaches give the players all the ingredients to succeed, and then they have to go do it. And the coaches are sometimes an afterthought, not the head coach. The head coach and the coordinators are never afterthoughts, but sometimes the positional coaches are taken for granted because they don't get the hype, they don't get the publicity, but they have such a big impact, arguably a bigger impact than the head coach and the coordinators, because of the things that they do Monday through Saturday to get them ready to play on Sunday. And these are the guys that spend the most time with their position group. Not Kevin O'Connell, not Wes Phillips, not Brian Flores, but guys like Chris Cooper, who was the offensive line coach for 4 years. Brian Angelichio, who was just hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers to be their offensive coordinator. He was with the tight ends. Those guys are the lifeblood of a football team. And sometimes they get overlooked because we just don't hear from them. We don't really see them. They don't get a ton of publicity, but they are the biggest factor why a team will fail or succeed. So we're going to talk a little bit about those guys today. We're also going to start the show with some front office news. Then we'll finish up with the mock draft, because I know how much you guys love these mock drafts. And quite frankly, I do too. So let's start with Rob Brzezinski. And I thought this was really interesting, Dave, that Brzezinski made a hire in the front office, and it is a temporary hire. It's a consulting gig for a guy named Matthew Thomas, I believe is what his name was. And he will be doing salary cap consulting, which honestly is not too dissimilar to the job description of Rob Brzezinski. But I think it's a really important hire for a couple of reasons. One, they have a history together. They did work with the Miami Dolphins back in 1998, a long, long time ago. But they have a familiarity with each other through that, and then just through their time in the league as well, because Brzezinski's been in the league since 1993. He knows how organizations operate, and honestly, for an interim GM, I don't think you could have somebody with much more experience in an NFL front office than what Brzezinski does. Two, his expertise is salary cap. And being that it's a salary cap, I think it's really important that he has somebody that he can rely on and trust. Because remember, Brzezinski's number one bit is he takes care of the salary cap. He handles the contracts. He makes sure that they're structured properly. But at the end of the day, he's not going to be able to spend nearly as much time on that, because he now has other duties, because he's running the entire show. And by running the entire show, you're going to have to do some more delegation. So he brings in somebody, even on a temporary basis, that can help implement the same strategies that they use to maximize contracts. Now, Thomas will also be able to bring in his own strategies to then bounce ideas off of Brzezinski and the rest of the front office to try and improve the salary cap situation in the contract structure. Look, Brzezinski's one of the best in the business, but there is more than one way to skin a cat in this scenario. You can structure contracts differently, and having another voice in the room, I think, is great. And we're going to talk about why Brian Angelichio being hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers could open the door for a number of different avenues for the Minnesota Vikings. So when we're talking about having different people in the room, one of the difficult topics of conversation that I've kind of broached over the last few weeks, especially with like Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Kwesi does not have to be a scout. The GM doesn't have to be a scout. He doesn't have to be a cap guy. He has to be a good manager, a good decision maker, because he has the right people in place to help him make those decisions. The bet that the Minnesota Vikings are making is that the information is good, but the decision maker based on that information was bad. And the bet that they're making here with Brzezinski is he'll be able to take that same information and compute it in a much smarter and efficient way to make better decisions. Now, will that work out? We'll find out. That's not what this conversation is about, because Brzezinski, being a cap guy, understands that he can't just focus on that one area. He needs to broaden his horizons. So he is bringing in outside help so he can focus on other aspects of the job. And I think that's really important. The second thing is, this is only a temporary position, meaning that I believe, kind of trying to read between the tea leaves, no sourcing here, that Brzezinski does not think he will become the general manager, or maybe he does not want to become the general manager, because otherwise he may consider bringing somebody in who didn't retire, because I believe Thomas did retire and he's just doing this on a temporary basis. Because if you believe that this was going to be more of a long-term thing, you would have maybe made a little bit more of a long-term hire than just a consultant. And that tells you that Brzezinski probably just wants to go back to his old job, which, look, he has 33 plus years of front office experience. He could have gotten a job as a general manager if he really wanted to push it. Because remember, he was in the triangle of authority. But he's a cap guy. Cap guys get hired as general managers. And sometimes we think, oh, it's just scouts. Dave, you or I could be a general manager. Anybody in this chat could be a general manager. It's about knowing who to trust, when to trust them, and then making your decisions based on that level of trust. And to me, I think that's the biggest area of failure with this Minnesota Vikings team. It's not necessarily that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was a good decision maker or a bad decision maker. He made his bed. The draft picks didn't work out, but like kind of some of the process behind it was good. Shit happens. Even good general managers get fired because draft picks don't work out. But to me, the biggest area of flaw here is the fact that everybody else is still there. So the information is going to be the same, whether it's Adofo-Mensah, Brzezinski, O'Connell, Flores, whoever makes the choice to make the pick. And to me, that's my big level of concern. But it was alleviated slightly because Brzezinski decided, hey, I am going to delegate some of my cap responsibilities, specifically because I need to make sure I'm making better decisions, and I need to make sure that this franchise keeps going on track. Because, look, Brzezinski's job is significantly easier when the team is good. It is. So I thought that was a really important hire. Now, I don't know a ton about Thomas, other than he spent a lot of time with the Seahawks. And the Seahawks have done some really good cap maneuvering over the years. In recent years, they've had to do a lot of pushing, where they push money into future years because of their cap situation. Now the Vikings are going to be doing that this year, but they're doing so with players they expect to be here forever. Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw. They expect those guys to retire Vikings. Now, is that going to happen? Who the hell knows? Their retirement's not going to be for 10 to 15 years. But those are the guys you deal with. Guys who are young. Guys who you don't have any intention of moving on from. And that's really smart business. Then you get the Saints, who their entire business strategy is just to push as much money as you can in the futures and just keep signing guys. And look, it's going to collapse on them eventually. They have a quarterback who looks promising on a rookie deal. They might not even be able to maximize it. So the Vikings have a very healthy cap situation right now. And bringing in an extra voice to help Brzezinski, Dave, I think it's a great move. I don't think any bad can come of it unless Thomas all of a sudden just decides to sign bad contracts and Brzezinski approves. But I think we're in a great spot.
Well, I think Thomas is a great addition, even though it's temporary. He's obviously worked with Brez before. He was in Seattle, I think, about 10 years and helped them get to the Super Bowl. He knows how to maneuver to get the correct talent. He retired a couple years ago, and I think being retired, he said, well, I could use a few extra bucks. Let me do this, and then I'll go back into retirement and play with the grandkids. And that's that. But I think it's a great move because you got somebody with that experience, that pedigree of experience and developing Super Bowl winner that will help Rob Brzezinski as he moves on to run everything, do the whole GM thing.
Yeah.
You have Kevin O'Connell and B-Flow do most of the selecting of players, but it'll be Rob that'll have, hey, no, you want defense, I want offense, blah, 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 blah. This is the way it's going to be because we can afford this, or this makes the better sense financially. I think it's a good setup the way they have it, believe it or not, right now. And it has worked before, where you have a GM that's not the supreme power player. You have more of the triangle of authority, and I'm not referring to ours from 2002 with Brzezinski and what became Spielman and Childress. But it can work, and I think they're setting it up to work with having the cap office up and ready to roll more than it normally is. And I think it was a good move. So I'm happy with hearing that news today and hearing about Thomas. I think it should help. We'll find out, post-draft. We'll be here live all 3 days of the draft. So,
yeah, we will be. Barring something else happening where we can't go all 3 days, but we're going to give you content on all 3 days by hell or high water. Last year, we did the final mock draft roundup. We broke that down in the morning to get you primed, ready to go. Ideally, I'd like to have that earlier, but so many mock drafts come out right away in the morning where we want to give you as much up-to-date information as possible. And then we'll have some form of content for you on night one, whether that be a day one live stream, or I may be somewhere else for night one just because of other commitments. And then we'll give you something later on. As of right now, I'm guessing I probably won't be doing the Purple Daily Draft Party, but you never know. Other opportunities may persist, but we're going to give you stuff. I promise you that. And then if we don't do a live stream here, we'll have something somewhere between 11 and midnight ready to rock and roll, get you hyped before bed on a Thursday night. And then Friday and Saturday, bada bing, bada boom, we will be live, ready to rock and roll for the last 2 days of the draft. Outside of that, we're going to have a lot more stuff. The new SKOL search dropped this morning for everybody, and it dropped last night for all members. I'm going to record a bunch more here this weekend, so Dave will have stuff ready to edit for next week. We're going to be talking more cornerbacks, more wide receivers, and I've started to dive into defensive tackles. So we're going to get into a lot of really good stuff and a lot more draft stuff. Like I said, a lot of great stuff. Dave and I just may screw around and be like, hey, let's just do a mock draft today. Boom. Well, you'll have an extra episode. There will be a lot of fun stuff ready to go for you. I can promise you that. Now, let's have a conversation. Oh, apparently the Dallas Cowboys are going to Rio de Janeiro next year, Dave.
Hey, I saw that the San Francisco 49ers and the Rams are playing in Sydney.
Yeah,
next
Melbourne.
Melbourne, yes, correct, Melbourne. And I thought, well, one of them is losing a home game against a division to be in Melbourne.
Yeah,
sucks for their fans.
That was very weird. But the one interesting thing about that, and I got this source directly from Australia, believe it or not. The two teams that they were targeting to bring over were the Rams and the Vikings because those are the two biggest fan bases. The Rams being the biggest. So it may kind of feel like a home game. And let's be real. If any team loses a home game, it's probably more okay that it's the Rams because they don't have this massive home field advantage anyways, because just the nature of what Los Angeles is, because there was no team there for so long.
Well, it'd be more for the Chargers, but anyways, yeah.
But just in general, the the Rams left, they went to St. Louis. The Raiders left, they went to Oakland. And then the Rams came back, and then so did the Chargers. But in that 20-year period, Los Angeles just became like a melting pot of fan bases. Mm-hmm. So the Rams have had a difficult time, same with the Chargers, gaining traction. At least the Chargers are only like 2 hours away from San Diego, where their entire fan base is. But even so, they felt really jaded by the fact that the Chargers moved up there. So them losing a game, not the biggest deal. But we're not here to talk about international games. I did find it interesting there was a division game, but I think they did it because it was two West Coast teams to try and make it as easy as possible considering the travel.
Or at least make it equal.
Yeah, because Northern California to Southern California is what, like maybe an hour plane?
You go direct San Francisco to Hawaii and then Hawaii to Australia. Just as easily as you can LA to Hawaii.
Exactly. So let's have a conversation about these assistant coaches. So Keith Carter, offensive line coach. I was not the biggest fan of this move because Carter does not exactly have the greatest reputation. We talked about that when he got hired. He's kind of a hard ass. His players don't really like him. His offensive lines were fine in Tennessee. Nothing really super special, but they did have Derrick Henry, and they did a really good job of maximizing him in that role. But to me, the biggest one of this whole conversation is Frank Smith, who was not, I initially thought, Dave, he was hired as assistant line coach. No, he was hired as assistant coach.
Head coach,
meaning
yes.
He reports directly to O'Connell. He did, like, by my understanding of the power structure, he won't report to Wes Phillips. He won't report to Brian Flores. He reports right to KOC. So that's interesting. And why I'm excited about Frank Smith being an assistant head coach is because he gets more broad responsibilities. More, hey, I'm going to pick your shit apart and we're going to fix it. And we're going to implement some new things to help elevate and grow. So I think it's going to be really interesting from that perspective, what Smith brings to the table. So when you look at the Dolphins, they are a very different type of team. They prioritize athleticism more than almost anybody else in the world because they have speed. With your offensive line, you need guys who can reach block and scoop block and do all these things with wide and outside zone and getting like crack toss and all that stuff. They did a lot of different variations. And one of the big things, and I hinted about it with Brian Angelichio being kind of not let go, but he moved on. You bring in a new voice to the room. You know, I sent out those Vikings first and goal surveys to like specifically for this show because I wanted to try and improve. The idea being sometimes like maybe somebody in the chat might not be willing to come like directly to me and be like, hey, your show sucks. You need to do this and it'll be way better. But you can do it in an anonymous format. In this sense, sometimes if you just rely on the people that you know, then you're not doing yourself a good service because you are just listening to the same people. And maybe those same people just believe what you do and there's no real problem solving going on. And that's not to say that guys like Wes Phillips, Brian Angelichio, and Josh McCown, Keenan McCardo, it's not to say they're not smart guys and they're not smart coaches, but sometimes you just need somebody new in the room. Tampa Bay Buccaneers fired Tony Dungy, who's a Hall of Fame head coach. Moved on to the Indianapolis Colts, and he won a Super Bowl. They brought in John Gruden, and he kept Monty Kiffin as defensive coordinator. Guess what? They won a Super Bowl year one. Sometimes you just need a new voice in the room to get you over the top. And when you have the same people entrenched in spots, sometimes you don't get that. You don't have somebody who's here to tell you, your shit stinks. You need to fix it. And by having a guy like Frank Smith, who helped architect a really explosive running game with the Dolphins, I think can really be a huge impact. Now, the Vikings did have a decent run game from an analytics perspective when they ran the football. And I think one of the tough parts about the running the football idea is the more you win, And the larger your leads is, the more you run the football. There is a real game script aspect to this conversation, and I don't think that gets brought up enough. Now, Kevin O'Connell does have a problem steering away from the run game. He will abandon it. He will just want to throw the football. And to me, if you want, I think you should group in screens, like bubble screens and stuff to the outside. They count as run plays to me. So when we talk about passes, I think those plays need to be looped in because it's the same thing. A run play, a bubble screen. The whole design is to get a player in a blocking scheme and to get them upfield and get yards after they touch the football. So to me, screens and runs are the same. And that's one of the reasons why the run game has decreased across the league, is because they have incorporated so many of these different screen variations, which act as a part of the run game. But even with all of that said, O'Connell has a tendency to just say, screw it, I'm just going to throw because I want to throw. And over the course of a long period of time, analytics will tell you that's a smart decision. But when you talk about small sample sizes like individual games, especially when it comes to game script, I want to really try and dive into some of the database science behind game script to try and understand a little bit better how it works. But basically, from an outside perspective, just watching the game, hey, you have 2nd and 5 at like the 40-yard line. Call play action or call run play. You don't have to try and just kill them. Like some of the game situation stuff, I think you could be a little bit better at. I know there's a lot of talking points about the 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 throwing the football. To me, you have to look at each individual play. And if you want to go search my Twitter, you'll find I charted all the individual plays. Everyone. Every 3rd and 1 or 2, 4th and 1 or 2, passing or throwing the football. And I talked about, okay, was this a good play call? Or was this just bad execution? Like, what's the reason behind why the lack of success? And I think some of especially the run game, which is why I'm so excited about Frank Smith, is the run game design is stale. There's no uniqueness. There's no growth. There's no building. You're running base ass concepts, running basic duo, basic zone. Why aren't we getting a little creative? And this is why I love the idea of bringing in a new voice to the room, because Frank Smith was a huge reason of that Miami Dolphins offense having such creative run plays. Mike McDaniel is a creative genius, but Frank Smith was in charge of a lot of the play design and game planning. Mike McDaniel was obviously a part of it too, but he called the plays and he was the head coach on Sunday. So that played into it a lot as well. Let's talk about some of the data points. So the Vikings ran the ball only 410 times this past year, 27th in the NFL. Only 2 other teams had winning records from 20 to 32. The Lions ran the ball 21st most times in the league, and they finished 9-8, and the Steelers finished 28th, and they only ran the ball 407 times. But the Steelers need the caveat of they threw the screen pass a lot because Aaron Rodgers did not throw the ball down the field. So game script has a really big factor here when you take a look at some of those data points, because if you're not winning, you're not running. Now, as we mentioned earlier, that's not to alleviate Kevin O'Connell's tendency to just ignore running the football. But it does deserve a little bit of context saying, hey, if you're down 10 points in the 3rd quarter, you're probably not running the ball that much. You're probably trying to score a touchdown. Then if you get within 3, then the run game theoretically will come back a little bit because you're a little more comfortable doing that. But when you're down a bunch, there's always a sense of urgency. We need to score. And the easiest way to score is to throw the football. So those things matter. One thing that I really liked about the Dolphins was they stunk, but they were still 5th in yards per rush at 4.7 yards and 9th in EPA per rush, because they did a great job of finding ways to get their talented players in space to eat up yards. Devon Achane, I always forget how to pronounce his name. I think it's Achane. Did a great job of when he had the ball, he was finding lanes and he was hitting them with explosiveness. Now, the Vikings don't have a running back like Achane. They just don't. But some of the play designs we'll be able to take advantage of. And just mixing it up a little bit, Dave, will be such a huge benefit to what this team can do in the run game, because you had toward the end of the season, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason were bursting for like 10 yards a pop half the time. It's like, okay, we got something here. What happens if we get more creativity throughout the course of a season? What happens if they build on that creativity throughout the course of a game? One thing that I always relate to, and this is like Kevin O'Connell, Mike McDaniel, they all come from the same tree. Sean McVay, when he first became a head coach, one of his big things was, I'm going to make everything look the same and you're not going to have any clue what's coming. So almost every play was 11 personnel and you had jet motion. You don't know if that's going to be a jet sweep. You don't know if that's going to be a run. You don't know if that's going to be play action. The illusion of complexity. I think we need to get back a little bit more of that. And with a healthy offensive line and a new offensive line coach, Keith Carter's not new, but his plans are going to be listened to a lot more because he's the guy versus where Chris Cooper was the guy. Will that work? We'll find out. But having those new voices theoretically could be a massive, massive spike into elevating this run game to be more explosive and more efficient than we've seen under O'Connell. Because O'Connell really hasn't had a great group of running backs. Dalvin Cook, the 1 year he had him, was washed, and he still broke 1,000 yards. But look, we love Dalvin on this show. He was washed. He was just pretty cooked at that point. Then 23, Alexander Madison. Nope. Aaron Jones, very good. Got 1,000 yards. Always hurt. This past year, Jordan Mason's a great complimentary back. You should get him 15 carries a game, but you need that other guy. And is Jones going to be that? I have my doubts because he's always hurt. And the salary cap, he just may be a casualty. So will running back be a focus? I think, Dave, you could argue, and I know people in the chat, when we get to that mock draft, they'll talk about it. Jeremiah Love at 18, if he's available, becomes really tempting for the fan base because we just have gone a few years without having a running back that can help elevate this run game to a level that we've come to expect with the likes of Adrian Peterson and then into Dalvin Cook.
Very much so. And then not only talk about the run game, you have Keith Carter, which we've talked about. He, believe it or not, improves run games where he's been. Now, they haven't been great, but he's improved them, and he improves it, one, by offensive line efficiency, i.e. they don't get called with as many penalties, i.e. discipline. And he very much is into the zone run style of play. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I opened the question on the show. Do these changes make the Vikings' future feel brighter? And I think as of today, they do. We're not finishing third, winning 5 games at the end in a row to finish third and not fourth in the division. I think what we have so far, we've actually done better than what we had. And the changes are necessary.
Yeah. I think what you said, feel, is a really important word here, because one of the tough parts kind of about the offseason in general is it breeds a lot of hope, where something new, it's like the kid that gets a new toy. Remember one of the first scenes in Toy Story? Woody is the toy, but then he gets Buzz Lightyear, and Woody just gets cast aside because you got the new shiny toy. Does that mean Buzz is better? Not necessarily. Buzz could be a worse toy. But one of the reasons why the offseason becomes so exciting is because new means better. New means different, which means hope. We should have hope that things are going to improve and be better. We should have hope that this team is going to turn it around. And quite frankly, they don't need a lot to turn 9 wins into 12. Average quarterback play. and a smidge more health on the offensive line gets the Vikings 12 or 13 wins last year. I don't think that's a hot take because there were so many instances of just atrocious quarterback play, and the injuries did pile up on the offensive line, but average quarterback play mitigates those enough to where you get more wins. So there's an easy path here for us. And I think the Vikings are taking the same approach based on their offseason so far, that they believe that they're this close. And I think you can easily convince yourself of that. Is that the right decision? Only time will tell what the right decision is. But this is the path that they've chosen. And this is the sword and hill they're willing to die on. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball, and then we got a mock draft to do. Gerald Alexander, former second-round pick of the Detroit Lions. He was on that 2006 Boise State team that beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. He is now the defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator, replacing Durante Jones. To my understanding, Alexander has a lot of fans throughout the league and is very highly thought of. He's a relatively young guy. I think he's about 40, 41. And he's going into a role held by Durante Jones. And because he's a former DB in the NFL, I think he's going to be able to relate to those guys a little bit better. And he's going to have a wealth of experience coming with him, having been in a few different systems as far as being a coach and a player. So I like the hire. I don't really have a whole lot more insight to it, but I do think that Alexander, I believe, was the assistant DB's coach for the Steelers in 22, which is why, like, kind of the connection, why that hire was made. And then the last one, I'm obsessed with this hire. Dave and I talked about it pre-show. He thinks Frank Smith's the most impactful hire. I think it's Ryan Nielsen, the run game coordinator. Now, what's interesting is they don't have a D-line coach yet, because initially it was reported he was going to be the D-line coach. The Vikings announced him as the run game coordinator. Nielsen is phenomenal with defensive linemen. He ran a good defense in Atlanta, but then Arthur Smith got fired, so he had to move on. He took the Jaguars job. That defense was a disaster, most of it not his fault. And then he had to go find a new job. He was I think a consultant this past year, and now he's back as a run game corner. Nielsen has the juice. And don't forget, he was one of the finalists for this defensive coordinator job back in 2023 when Brian Flores got it. Nielsen is great with defensive linemen. I think he's going to do wonders for guys like Jalen Redmond, Levi Drake Rodriguez, Elijah Williams, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, helping them grow and get to the next level. Because he is responsible for guys like Cam Jordan, Sheldon Rankins, like all those really talented defensive linemen that we've seen come out of New Orleans. Like Trey Hendrickson. Yeah. Nielsen worked with all those guys. So that's huge. I'm very, very, very excited about him becoming the run game coordinator, because I think it's going to elevate the unit to another level. And that to me is the most impactful hire, especially when it comes to run game stuff. Now, we did find out, and can we take it to the bank? The Harrison Phillips, how Brian Flores really liked Harrison Phillips. I'd like to get a little bit more concrete sourcing on that. No, those aren't my sources. Those are from reports, I believe, that Brian Flores, it was widely reported he didn't like Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. And I think one of the reasons why was because Flores really liked Harrison Phillips. And, well, Phillips got traded, where analytically on a sheet makes sense, but you need a nose tackle. Now, the run defense wasn't nearly as bad as it felt at times.
They got better as the season went, and Brian Flores figured out how to use the guys he had, the groceries in the cart he had, to make something spectacular.
And I think that's an important thing, because that's been the theme of Brian Flores' tenure here. Took a few games in 23 to get that figured out, took a few games in 24, and it took a few games in 25. But once he got in a groove, they thrived. So I'm really excited about Nielsen, what his addition could mean for this Minnesota Vikings team. And I can't wait to see how it's impacted on Sundays. The last thing, Brian Angelichio is out as the tight ends coach and passing game coordinator. He's gone to be the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I mentioned earlier. he was a right-hand man for Kevin O'Connell by all reports. And losing that kind of confidant can be stinky, but it can also be a good thing if you get the right guy to replace him. New ideas can breed more success because you don't want to stay stagnant. And this could be a huge blessing in disguise to replace him because of those factors. We'll find out if it works, but I'm kind of excited to see how it grows and evolves throughout the course of his tenure. Now, do you have anything more on the coaches and the front office stuff, Dave?
No, I'm pretty happy with the move so far. I can't wait to see. We're starting new, and it's and anytime you can shake up the quote leadership, it's a good thing. If you get guys promoted off other ways, it's a good thing. It looks good on you. And then you get new ideas coming in, like you said. You get a little bit fresher. You look at some of what these guys bring in, and it's pretty good. So, like I said, I feel better about the season after I prep for this show and who we've hired so far. There's still a couple holes open. There's safeties coach, and there's the tight end / passing coordinator coach. But we'll see how those go this week.
Yeah. Get excited. Speaking of excited, Dave, I think the people are going to get excited. It's mock draft time.
Welcome to Vikings First and SKOL's Mock Draft Mondays. Who will the Vikings pick? And who's your favorite choice? Mock Draft Mondays on Wednesday or on Thursday.
All right. We're going to do a quick 7-round mock. We're going to have some fun. I think what we'll try doing one of these times is maybe do like a viewer mock or something like that to try and get a little bit more excitement in there. But for now, we're going to run through all picks. Now, one thing to remember here is that with the PFF mock draft simulator, you have to make a couple of trades in order to get the accurate reflected picks. Right now, all these picks are projected, so that might not happen until the comp picks are announced and when they announce the full draft order, and then they'll have everything all squared away. But just you have to make a couple tweaks because there's a couple like conditional trades and stuff that make this a little bit wonky. So just something to be aware of.
Question.
Yes.
Can you embiggen that screen? Hit Command plus.
Yeah.
Because you should be able to fill side to side.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. See, here's the problem. I don't use a Mac except for this show. So
okay. It should be Command plus. Command plus.
Nothing.
Really? Interesting. You've clicked on that screen.
Yep. The Alt Command button and then plus. Nothing.
Not Alt Command, just Command plus.
Oh,
there we go.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to charge
Mac
to the
101.
account. I'm
Brought
using
to you by Dave.
A Logitech keyboard. So the command button is right here. See? This is the button that I needed to use with plus to get it to work. So this is what happens. This is what happens. Okay, anyways, we got to figure it out. So we are picking 18th overall, taking a look at the board. All the cornerbacks that I really like at this spot are gone. So cornerback is out. Linebacker, Sonny Styles is gone. That stinks. Wide receiver, I love Denzel Boston. He is actually my wide receiver 5, but I still have a first round grade on him. I love him. He's an interesting option. The way this board fell, I don't think there's anything else you can do except take a defensive tackle. You have to take defensive tackle here. So there's three options. Caden McDonald, the nose tackle from Ohio State. Caleb Banks, the versatile nose tackle 3-tech hybrid from Florida. And Peter Woods, who's a straight 3-tech from Clemson. So looking at all these guys, if I have the opportunity to take a guy with pass rush juice who's on the same plane, I'm eliminating the nose tackle. I'm not going to take Caden McDonald because I have the ability to get a first-round caliber player with legit pass rush juice. So I don't want to take a straight nose. So that's what we're going to decide between Peter Woods and Caleb Banks. Woods is a little bit more of a traditional 3-tech, 6'3", 3-tech. He's got good size. Usually you see 3-techs around like 6'1.5", 6'2". So he's got a little bit more height, and he's got 310 pounds on his frame. He had an up and down year after a really good 2024 where you have him elevating to like being a consensus top 5 pick going into the season. Could Ione play center? Probably not. Now, could he change my mind? Sure, but I don't see it right now. But like always, with more information, that opinion can change. Banks, I saw live at the Senior Bowl. He is 6'6", 330. It is like staring at my twin. If my twin was very, very athletic and not just, fat with a bunch of hernias in their stomach. Banks is basically my size, except a very, very good build. So one of the things with Banks was he hurt his foot, and they hurt it again against LSU and missed 9 of the 12 games. He looked healthy. And the one benefit he has is he has the 35-inch arm. So he can peek, he can shed, and he's got a bevy of pass rush moves. He knows how to get quick penetration, and he's got the burst to do it. This is a very unique player who you're betting on the measurables continuing to help him out and be great while he continues refining that technique. But he has production. He had 4.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss in a starting but rotational role in 2024 when he played all 13 games for the Florida Gators. This is a very rare player from a size and quickness perspective. And even though he's 335, he's not a nose where you're not going to get any pass rush juice. This is a pass rusher. You're going to get everything from him. And to me, with how Brian Flores is liking to kind of use that defensive line, I think that's more valuable than a guy like Peter Woods, who's probably going to be more of just a pass rusher. And it's going to be more valuable than Caden McDonald, who's going to be much more of just a run stopper. I think you get both in Caleb Banks. And for me, that's why I'm going to take Caleb Banks here, because you get the best of both worlds. And when you have a guy like Flores, having somebody who can play both helps your defense a lot, because it doesn't say, hey, we're here to play the run, or hey, we're here to play the pass. Hey, guess what? I play both, baby. So if Banks, I don't know if Banks will be available because I think he's going to blow up the combine. But if he's available, to me, it's a no-brainer. I think I do have a little bit of Florida bias. I think it'll be a fair counterpoint, but I love him. I think he's great. Let's go to the second round. Lee Hunter, if you want to double down the defensive line, he's a very explosive nose tackle. He's actually a little bit smaller than Caleb Banks. It's 6'4", 330. But Banks has 35+ inch arms. He's just a wild, wild player. So let's take a look at some other. Romello Height, he weighs like 225 pounds at edge.
Speaking of defensive tackles.
Yeah.
Getting off the mock draft. Tonight, hopefully, we celebrate that Kevin Williams makes the Hall of Fame. Just wanted to let everybody know that.
Man, I hope he makes the Hall. I'm going to have to pre-write that when I get done with this shit. I think when you kind of look at it, Caleb Tiernan's interesting, but he's a guard tackle hybrid kind of guy where he could play both. But I don't really love taking a guy that you're not projecting in as a starter in round 2, or that if they take him, what's the plan? Oh, we just want more offensive line depth. To me, like when you have other positions of higher need, when you have other players who are of similar draft stock, I think that's a terrible plan. Now, if Tiernan or a guy like him was far and away the best guy on the board, yeah, just take him and figure it out. But I don't think offensive line is nearly as big of a need as most people do. And quite frankly, nobody wants to hear it. But Justin SKOL is pretty good for his pay. You gave him $2 million, and he gave you some pretty good moments.
For a $2 million tackle, yes, he did.
He was paid to be a swing tackle, and he delivered on that payment, and then some. I think sometimes we get a little too over the top, like, oh, he sucks. Yeah, you don't want him to play, but if he does, he's going to be better than other people in his position, and that's what you got. So Grandizer thinks Chris Johnson has to be the pick. I like Johnson a lot. The one thing that I keep looking at, Dave, experience at corner. And I don't necessarily love the fact that he's 25 years old. But to me, if you were to talk about a cornerback that Brian Flores will take, it's Keontae Scott. Because he's 25. He's got oodles of experience and snaps. And that's a big factor with who plays at corner. Now, if you want to go to Chris Johnson, who Grandizer talked about, I like Johnson a lot. I think I gave him a second. Let's find out. I can pull it up because I have spreadsheets. Chris Johnson, my cornerback 5 at the moment, high 3rd round grade. So where this class is going to end up, like, I don't love taking a high 3rd round player middle of the 2nd round, but I do think he's a good player. And for what this class is, that just might have to be the value. So Johnson also has a ton of experience. Only 4 years, so he's a little bit younger, but you can tell looking at these numbers, he's got a lot of experience, and he was excellent this year. Only 18 of 43 allowed for 185 yards, 4 picks. He's more of a zone corner, which the Vikings want to play a little bit more zone anyways. Now, I'm still very curious because of where Flores' background is, Bill Belichick, how much of that has to do with the fact of his personnel versus what he actually wants to do. But the way the Vikings play, it's very zone heavy, and I think Johnson would fit that to a T. I love D'Angelo Pons. I think the Vikings will be willing to look past the height and size because he's 5'9", 173. But with other cornerbacks like Johnson on the board, I don't think they would take a guy like Pons. So I'm going to stay away from him. I think we're going to go with Grandizer. We're going to take Chris Johnson. And now you have a veteran cornerback on this roster. I mean, albeit a rookie. But you have a veteran who can come in and he can contribute. And that's always been the tough part. I think it was Road 2504 and the Skull Search video that dropped this morning, Dave, talked about how it's like he eases some of these guys in. And I think there's some merit to that. But the only quarterbacks that they've targeted have been older and have experience. And to me, I want to see that narrative change before I change it in my brain. Because there's a reason why. The coverages, once they're done, are incredibly simple. But to get there, it's incredibly complex. And you have to be smart and you have to be understanding of all these rule changes and stuff. So that's why they're prioritizing these older, intelligent corners, because it's more important to them than athleticism and skill. Not to say that you still have to be good at football, but those things matter a lot more in this system with Brian Flores. So let's take a look. Skylar Bell's an interesting one. You're going to hear his name a lot more. One of the 3 finalists for the Biletnikoff Award with Mekhi Lemon and Jeremiah Smith. This dude balled at UConn. And I love watching small school football. I will be honest, I did not get to watch a ton of UConn, but I watched Skylar Bell. Dude can play. And I got to tell you, when it comes to wide receiver, I'm still not convinced that they don't need one. Ty Felton, who the hell knows? Jalen Naylor, who the hell knows? Jordan Addison, I think that they're going to be just fine with Jordan Addison. I think he's going to be extended.
You mean they're not going to trade him up to get another first rounder?
No, I don't
move
think so.
Up in the first round?
I don't think so. That trade that came from, I think, Chat Sports. I'm sorry, giving up Jordan Addison to move up from 18 to 6 is stupid. It's a terrible idea. That's the kind of move you do for a quarterback. But you'd be doing it for like Caleb Downs. Can you imagine if Kwesi did that? How insane people would be going because you gave up a wide receiver who's shown to be very, very good to move up for a safety. Oh my gosh. That, like, you might as well just like Vikings Twitter on fire if that happens. So I think linebacker is an interesting one, but Torian York is, as my friend JP said, built like a French bulldog. Torian York is built like Odie. He's basically Ivan Pace sized. I don't love that, but he's more of a well-rounded player than Ivan Pace, but still the size. Emmett Johnson, I've not got eyes on him yet, so I'm excited to get eyes on him, but I'm doing defensive tackles first, and then I'm going to circle back to running backs. If you really don't believe in whatchamacallit, what's his name? Will Fry's moving forward. I think Chase Basantis, he's a phenomenal pass protector. Danny Dennis Sutton, awesome Senior Bowl, hyper athlete. He's built like a traditional like 4-3 edge. So you could use him in a Jonathan Grenard type role, but I don't think that they're going to want to replace Grenard anytime soon. I think he's going to be here a long, long time. Jacob Rodriguez, I'm still not convinced he's this great player like some other people are. I think his PR team is wonderful, and that's a good thing, but I'm not convinced of it. Oh, yeah, 100%. So kind of taking a look at this, I'm going to defer to we need an explosive running back. I haven't got great eyes on him, but I've heard really good things. We're going to take Emmett Johnson from Nebraska, get that explosive element that we talked about with Frank Smith. Guys on the edge, and go zoom, zoom, zoom. So we got that in Emmett Johnson. Now we take a look here. We've taken a D tackle, we've taken a corner, we've taken a running back. We can kind of just do whatever we want. Xavier Scott, not in this draft anymore. He withdrew. One guy I really love here, Genesis Smith. Bigger safety, more of a nickel. Like, think of what Josh Metellus is. That's kind of the archetype you're getting with Genesis Smith as far as how they use Metellus. Line up in the box. You can line him up deep. You can line him up as like a dime backer. You can do a bunch of different things with him. And I think it would not shock me if he goes top 40. This dude is really, really good at football. Now, will he go top 40?
How big is he?
6'2", 204. So he's got good size.
Too small for a linebacker, though.
Yeah, but I mean, so is Josh Metellus. When you do the dime backer stuff, I think it works. But you don't want to have him there on a regular basis. But in certain sub packages, I think it could work. So we need a safety. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo. I'm going to get eyes on him really soon. He continues to be mocked to the Vikings. Daniel Jeremiah was the first one, like he always is. Whenever the top mock draft guys put somebody in the first round, everybody else starts doing it. So I'm intrigued to see what happens once that balances out. Is he going to stay in that range? I don't know. His teammate did. Quinyon Mitchell 2 years ago. Mitchell had that incredible Senior Bowl. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. All right. So far, we got to speed this up a little bit because it is already 7 o'clock. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, I'm sick. So I'm ready to go blow my nose. Caleb Banks, Chris Johnson, Emmett Johnson, Genesis Smith. So we have attacked the secondary with 2 picks, defensive line, and running back. I don't feel like we have to go anywhere. I know Brian was talking about how we really need a backup offense, like offensive tackle. I think we're going to get one. It's just going to be in free agency. I don't think, like, if you draft a backup offensive tackle in round 2, to me, the plan needs to be that guy starts in year 2. Like, you should have a plan for that guy to be a starter by the end of his rookie contract. And the way I project things right now, Dave, I don't think that guy is going to start maybe ever in his rookie contract unless it's injury. because you have Christian Darrisaw, and my expectation is they extend Brian O'Neill because, one, he's still very, very good at football, and two, you can do that and save a ton of money on the cap with this $23 million cap hit. So to me, a high offensive lineman does not make sense unless you have a plan for that guy to start soon. And right now for the Vikings, I just don't see it. All right, let's take a look at some players.
Center.
Quintavious, center. I'm not convinced the Vikings will need a center. Hey, we've talked about it. I think that they're fine at center. And I think part of the reason why there's so much at center, where like, hey, we need a center, we need a center, we need centers, because we have been tortured with offensive line for years. If you have all of your starters back and then put Blake Brandel at center, I think we're fine. I think you are just fine. Now,
and if Jurgens beats out Brandel, great.
Yeah, I'd love to have an all-pro there, but sure. I don't think it needs, as long as you don't have a debilitating weakness, which Brandel at center, solid player. I think you're okay. And there's growth potential there too, because he's barely played the position and he played it well. So for me, I'm not convinced. A couple Senior Bowl standouts are at the top. Tyron Montgomery from John Carroll. If you've never heard of John Carroll, they run the NFL. They're a Division III school, and 19 of 32 teams employ somebody who went to John Carroll, including Josh McDaniels, Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula. And there's a lot more John Carroll coaches and players that have played in the league. London Fletcher, the former Rams and Commanders linebacker, and Bills too, John Carroll. This is a D3 powerhouse that everybody comes from. So Tyron Montgomery, he's got good size. He's got good twitch in short spaces, but I'm going to be real with you. I don't think he's this super explosive player. I think he's a good player. I think he's solid. Now, is he going to be worth this pick? Yeah, I think this is about where I'd want to take him. End of round 4, round 5. That's kind of the range. Quintavious Hutchins is interesting. 6'3", 240. Think about the idea of Dallas Turner without the super high upside and without run defense. Hutchins is a very interesting player when it comes to rushing the passer, and he's a very good athlete, but he's not a fully developed product. He's just not. Norris Force, I did take Caleb Banks over Caden McDonald because I don't want to take a straight nose tackle in the first round when I could take a defensive tackle that's got pass rush juice. And quite frankly, Caleb Banks can play nose and he can play 3-tech. And then I can use that as a mismatch weapon. So if both Peter Woods and Caleb Banks are gone, I will consider McDonald, absolutely. But I'm not going to take a nose tackle there when you can get a nose tackle. I could trade a 6th-round pick for Harrison Phillips. Oh, wait, the Vikings traded him away for that. Shoot. Never mind. But nose tackles are kind of a dime a dozen, and you better be on a god-tier level as a nose for me to want to take you in round 1. Yes, Quintavious Hutchins is absolutely a Key and Peele name. He was awesome in Mobile, but there's some real run defense concerns, and he's kind of light in the pants. So, not a whole lot. I will say, Trey Zune took some center snaps. Like if you wanted like a developmental center, he's an interesting guy. John Michael Gillenborg, if you want a developmental tight end, also a good player. George Gums. I am a George Gums fan because one of the things with Gums is he was a wide receiver at Northern Illinois 5 years ago, and now he's a 265-pound edge rusher at Florida. I think there's some developmental there. There's something worth investing in, but probably not for where the Vikings are at here. I'm going to listen to the chat. We're going to take Tyron Montgomery. I think Montgomery can be you know what? At the very least, if he never is good as a receiver, this is the kind of guy that you take, and he's a core special teamer. And that's not ideal for 5th-round value, but I think it's not a bad value because this is where you want your special teamers. You need special teamers. Remember how everybody wanted Matt Daniels fired? It's because the special teamers were bad. So getting good special teamers is a good thing. All right, take a look here. Another good center option, Parker Brailsford. I like him a lot. He was at 275 2 years ago. He's up to almost 300, and he's got a lot of experience. Terrian Stewart, if you want a running back like sleeper, that's my guy. I think he rules. But we're gonna go with Brailsford here because I know everybody wants offensive line, everybody wants center. So we'll give it to you. 1 sec.
You have a mute button.
I thought I muted it. Did I not?
No.
Son of a... I'm bad. I'm sorry. Grandizer asked about Mason Reiger. I'm going to tell you to keep an eye on wide left because I hear that there's going to be a story coming out on Mason Reiger soon. So my guys who go to the Shrine Bowl, which the wide left guys do, Arif Hassan obviously owns and runs wide left. He brought in Devin Jackson and Alex Gadsden, who are both friends of the show. They've both been on this show multiple times. They loved Mason Reiger at the Shrine Bowl. So I'm going to try and get eyes on him soon. We'll see. I think that wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of look for him. I don't even know where he's projected to go right now because I have not gotten. There we go. 258. We'll get him at the end of the draft. We'll get him at the end.
Brian says, drink fluids, rest. We need more content.
Hey, I'll get it to you. I promise. One guy to look out for, Eli Heidenreich. This dude rules. He played at Navy and he's 6'2", 206. I think you get him up to 225, and this could be a Kyle Juszczyk because he is a weapon at wide receiver. He's plenty good with the ball in his hand, and you get him a little bit stronger because, as we've talked about with Dave, because he's an Air Force vet, the type of training that you do counteracts NFL training hardcore. You get him in the NFL weight room. This is the kind of guy you stash on a practice squad for a year, and then boom, all of a sudden you have a dude at fullback and you have a versatile player. And you know what? Elite special teamer, Eli Heidenreich. I'm taking him. I don't even care. I will take Eli Heidenreich 10 out of 10 in the 7th round. Absolutely. Devin Eastern. I had no idea who Devin Eastern was. And I watched a decent amount of Gopher football. He grew a lot and improved each day at the Senior Bowl. So he is going to be somebody I want to get my eyes on. 6'6", 320, big dude, decent athlete, decent pass rusher, probably going to be more of a nose at the next level. But I was really impressed with him. Taylon Green ran a lot at the Senior Bowl. He's a quarterback. You're not supposed to run in practice. We're going to take here for the chat. We are going to take Mason Reiger because I like you guys. And you guys come here, so I hope you like me too. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. That will help me get unsick, I promise. So let's take a look at our picks. Quite frankly, we've done a really good job of hitting a bunch of different spots. Heidenreich, look, that's a vanity pick, but you need special teamers and you have no fullback anymore. So you can develop him into the next CJ Ham. So we have some really interesting players. I like the fact that we're getting an edge rusher in this draft because I think you should always draft like edge, wide receiver. You should, an unoffensive lineman. You should draft at least one of them a year if you have enough picks because it's always good to have them. Corner too. Those are like the 4 positions. Just draft them and figure it out. I wouldn't be opposed to taking a quarterback here. Except I don't love the quarterback options. Miller Moss, like if Miller Moss had a little more juice in his arm, I think he'd be pretty solid. But I don't think quarterback's something we should ignore at this point in the draft because we do need a developmental guy, and Max Brosmer might not be that developmental guy anymore after what we saw. At the very least, he's going to have to win the job as QB3 next year when it comes to training camp. So bring in a guy at the end of round 7 who, if he makes the team, it really doesn't matter that much. Just take a guy that you like, who tops your priority free agent list, essentially. But I'm going to tell you, Riley Nowakowski, Indiana tight end, a little bit smaller, more of like a H-back size, 6'2", 249, was awesome at Indiana. And when you have guys like Dane Brugler talking about how good you are, Dane Brugler is the draft analyst. He doesn't talk about everybody, but I've seen him mention him multiple times. When I watch, Nowakowski does a great job in just being impactful and productive. So you know what? We need a tight end 3. Welcome to the competition, Riley Nowakowski. So they're grading our draft. At the end of the day, these draft grades don't mean a ton because it's all based on the position on the board, right? And because it's based on the position on the board, it's not always going to line up with what'll actually happen, you know? See, I drafted Caleb Banks over Peter Woods. Woods was ranked like 1 or 2 spots higher. So that's like negligible. Like, who cares? Like, overall, pretty solid. And we're not trying to just be elite. We're trying to just build a good football team. And I think we did a really good job of building that football team here today, Dave. What do you think?
Not bad. Not bad at all.
All right. That is going to do it for us here today at the Real Forno Show. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell for those notifications. We're going to have more SKOL searches next week. And who knows, maybe Dave and I will just do a live one for you, but for one of these, just to feel something. We're going to have a lot more. I'm going to have a lot more players to watch. And soon I'm going to start taking requests on players that you guys want to see, because I want to make sure that you guys get all the information you need for this NFL draft and get the players that you want to hear about. I have to do the top guys. You know, that's part of the deal. And I have to watch a bunch of wide receivers because that's part of my job at A to Z Sports. But we're going to do a lot more SKOL searches, and we're going to talk a lot more about prospects. And I'm going to start bringing on guests to talk about. Grandizer talks about a call-in show. Yeah. I think we can have a conversation about that. Hell, what I want you to do is I want you to put in the comments, if I did a meetup before the draft, would you want to come? Let me know in the comments, because I will consider doing a meetup at like a brewery or something. But only if we get enough interest. So let me know in the comments. Let me know who you want to see for these SKOL searches. Let me know what you think of this draft. And then get excited for Two Old Bloggers to kick off your Super Bowl Sunday at 11 a.m. Unless Darren decides to change the time again, because,
nope.
Oh, he's not on vacation again? All right.
He's going to be there. We're talking
dedicated.
Tight ends and the position review, and then he's still working on venting on the Kwesi firing.
Hey, I get it. It kind of happened quick, and I think I've gotten all of my takes out on it. But the biggest one I want to leave everybody with is this. Just because you changed the guy in the seat does not mean things will get better. Because I think the bigger issue is everybody behind Kwesi, the scouting staff, the personnel staff. I think the other elements of the front office are more of an issue than Kwesi. Kwesi fell on the sword. He had his own issues. But that's what I mean. Just because Kwesi's gone doesn't mean it gets better until those things are fixed. So something to just think about. Robe 2504, you got to let me know where you're from if you're not going to get through immigration. We'll find a way. I'll have Dave call up his Air Force buddies and we'll get you in. I am kidding. We don't have that kind of power. We'd never try a coup like that. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you join Dave, Darren, and Drew on the 3Ds.
Me and Darren.
Oh, no Drew anymore?
No, Drew's only during the season.
Oh,
he might guest for the draft, but he's already working on his big board as well. But no, Drew is inside the numbers guy. We don't have numbers in the off season.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a wonderful day. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!